Will Smith's lawyer just went scorched earth on these sexual harassment allegations, and the clip is everywhere. Attorney Alan B. Grodsky called the claims false, baseless, and reckless, and made it clear Will Smith is ready to fight. But before that response dropped, the accuser had already posted his own video, just 5 days before filing the lawsuit.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to talk about something really important. Earlier this year, I was hired to be a performer on a major tour.
A major tour? Somebody huge. That's violinist Brian King Joseph, and he's talking about Will Smith.
Unfortunately, some things happened, and I can't get into the details of exactly what that was, because it's already a legal issue right now.
Now we know exactly what he's claiming, because the 15-page lawsuit spells it all out. A hotel room break-in, a handwritten note signed with a mysterious alias, and a firing that Joseph says was pure retaliation. This is about to get ugly. Right now, as you're watching this video, a clip is going absolutely viral across every corner of the internet. A clip that shows exactly how Will Smith's high-powered attorney, Alan B. Grodsky, is planning to dismantle what might be one of the most explosive celebrity lawsuits of the decade. But here's the thing that nobody is talking about yet. Before that legal response even hit the news cycle, another video had already surfaced. A haunting, cryptic message from the man at the center of this firestorm, violinist Brian King Joseph, speaking out in a way that sent chills down the spines of everyone who watched it.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to talk about something really important. Earlier this year, I was hired to be a performer on a major tour with somebody who is huge in the industry.
That voice you just heard,
that's the voice of a man who says his entire world was shattered in the span of just a few months. And what he's about to reveal next in that video is something that the entertainment industry absolutely did not want you to hear.
Let me tell you something. When this story first broke across the headlines in early January 2026, most people dismissed it as just another celebrity scandal, another lawsuit designed to grab attention and maybe extract a settlement. But the deeper you dig into the actual court filings, the more you realize that this is not your typical Hollywood drama. This is a 15-page document filed in Los Angeles County Superior Court that lays out allegations so specific, so meticulously detailed, that even seasoned entertainment reporters found themselves doing double takes as they read through the complaint. The plaintiff in this case is none other than Brian King Joseph. And if that name sounds familiar, it's because you've probably seen him before. This is a man who captured the hearts of millions when he took the stage on America's Got Talent Season 13 back in 2018. But here's what makes his story even more remarkable, and frankly, even more heartbreaking when you consider what he's now alleging happened to him.
My hands are already partially numb. I can barely feel my toes, and the pain is 24/7. It's like all the nerves in my body are screaming at the same time. They're burning.
Let that sink in for just a moment. Brian King Joseph has been performing through excruciating pain for years. He was diagnosed with peripheral neuropathy back in 2012, a degenerative nerve condition that causes chronic pain, numbness, and loss of sensation in his hands and feet, the very hands he uses to make his violin sing. The doctors told him he might eventually lose the ability to play altogether, but he refused to give up. He adapted his technique, learned to perform through agony, and became one of the most electrifying performers the AGT stage had ever seen. And now, after everything he's been through, after clawing his way back from the brink of losing his career to a disease that shows no mercy, Brian King Joseph is standing up and saying that something happened to him during Will Smith's 2025 World Tour, something that left him not just unemployed, but allegedly traumatized in ways that go far beyond losing a job. According to the lawsuit, Will Smith and Brian King Joseph first crossed paths after Joseph did some studio sessions with several high-profile artists. Word got around about this incredible electric violinist who could fuse classical technique with modern pop, hip-hop, and electronic music in ways that nobody had ever seen before. Eventually, that word reached Will Smith himself, and in November of 2024, Joseph was invited to Will's home to show him what he could do.
From there, Will agrees to let him play at an upcoming show he has in San Diego. Now, the San Diego show, which was in December of 2024.
That meeting went incredibly well. So well, in fact, that Will Smith invited Brian King Joseph to perform at an upcoming show in San Diego. The San Diego show in December of 2024 was, by all accounts, a massive success. Joseph's performance was electric. His chemistry with Smith on stage was undeniable. And by the end of the night, Will Smith himself had allegedly told Joseph that he was a valuable member of the team. But here's where the story takes its first troubling turn. According to the lawsuit, the relationship between Will Smith and Brian King Joseph began to evolve in ways that Joseph would later describe as deeply unsettling. The court filing alleges that Smith began making statements like, "You and I have such a special connection that I don't have with anyone else," along with other similar expressions that Joseph interpreted as something far more concerning than professional camaraderie. The lawsuit uses very specific language here. The complaint states that Will Smith was deliberately grooming and priming Joseph for what it calls further sexual exploitation. Now, these are allegations, unproven claims in a court document, but they paint a picture of a professional relationship that allegedly transformed into something much darker.
Unfortunately, some things happened, and I can't get into the details of exactly what that was because it's already a legal issue right now. But the reason why I'm speaking out about this is because getting fired or getting blamed or shamed or threatened or anything like that simply for reporting sexual misconduct or safety threats at work.
From December 2024 until March 2025, there was a break between performances, but when March rolled around and Will Smith kicked off the first leg of his Based on a True Story World Tour, everything was about to change forever. The crew arrived in Las Vegas for what was supposed to be just another tour stop. The way the hotel bookings worked, according to the lawsuit, is that Will Smith's team would book everybody's hotel rooms and then send out a spreadsheet to the cast and crew listing each person's room number and confirmation code. This detail becomes absolutely critical because Joseph specifically highlights that the only people who had access to his room information would have been the hotel staff and the crew for this tour. On March 20th, 2025, the crew gets dropped off at the venue for rehearsals around 11 a.m. Joseph says he left his bag, which contained his room key, in the van they all came in. By 3 p.m., when he asked management to retrieve his bag, they told him they couldn't find it. It wasn't until about 2 hours later that management finally located the bag with the key inside and returned it to Joseph. Remember that timeline. Remember that gap of hours when Joseph's room key was missing.
On March 20th, 2025, Brian King Joseph says that he goes to the room that he had been assigned and discovered, quote, evidence suggesting that an unknown person had unlawfully entered the room.
Brian King Joseph returned to his hotel room around 11 p.m. to find evidence of unauthorized entry. There were no signs of forced entry, no kicked-in doors, no broken locks, which meant whoever got in had access to a key or the room code. According to the 15-page lawsuit, when Joseph entered his room, he found a collection of items that sent his mind reeling. First, there was a handwritten note. The exact words on that note read, "Brian, I'll be back no later 5:30, just us." Below those words was a hand-drawn heart, and the note was signed Stone F.
That evidence included a handwritten note that said, quote, Brian, I'll be back later, 5:30, just us. There's a heart, and it's signed Stone F.
But the note was just the beginning. Scattered around the room, Joseph allegedly found wipes, a beer bottle, a red backpack, an earring, hospital discharge paperwork belonging to someone Joseph didn't know, and perhaps most disturbingly, a bottle of HIV medication with another person's name on it.
There was also, according to the lawsuit, some wipes, a beer bottle, a red backpack, a bottle of HIV medication with another person's name on it, an earring, and hospital discharge paperwork belonging to a person that Brian King Joseph didn't know.
The lawsuit alleges that Joseph interpreted these findings as what the complaint calls a sexual threat of violence, a warning that someone intended to return to that room and engage in sexual activity with him against his will. Joseph, now fearing for his safety, immediately notified everyone about what happened and requested a room change. He called the local non-emergency police line. He filed an incident report with hotel security. He documented everything, and according to the lawsuit, hotel security confirmed that only tour management, meaning Will Smith's team, would have had access to Joseph's room.
Brian, who was now concerned for his safety and the safety of his fellow performers and crew, notifies everyone about what happened and requests a room change. He also calls the local non-emergency line and files an incident report with hotel security.
Joseph flew home to Los Angeles the very next day. At first, things seemed like they might continue as normal. He was told he'd see everyone in New Mexico for the next leg of the tour. But then, just a few days later, everything fell apart. A man named Tim Miller, who worked on Will Smith's team, allegedly contacted Joseph. But instead of offering support, instead of updating him on any investigation, Miller allegedly blamed Joseph for the incident and accused him of fabricating the entire story.
The lawsuit says a few days after that, a man named Tim Miller, who worked on Will Smith's team, blames Joseph for the hotel incident and tells him, quote, "I don't know, you tell me, because everyone is telling me that what happened to you is a lie. Nothing happened and you made the whole thing up."
Everyone is telling me that what happened to you is a lie. Nothing happened and you made the whole thing up.
And then, Brian King Joseph was fired. The lawsuit alleges that the termination was retaliation. Joseph was told that the tour was moving in a different direction, but another violinist was hired almost immediately to replace him. The direction hadn't changed. The position still existed. The only thing that changed was that Brian King Joseph, the man who reported what happened, was no longer welcome.
Sexual misconduct or safety threats at work is not okay. And I know that there's a lot of other people out there who have been afraid to speak up.
The complaint states that the facts of this case strongly suggest that Will Smith was deliberately grooming and priming Mr. Joseph for further sexual exploitation. The sequence of events, Smith's prior statements to the plaintiff, and the circumstances of the hotel intrusion all point to a pattern of predatory behavior rather than an isolated incident. And now, with this lawsuit officially filed and Brian King Joseph's video going viral, all eyes have turned to one man, Will Smith's attorney. Because how he handles this case could determine everything. When you're a celebrity facing allegations this serious, you don't call just any lawyer. You call Alan B. Grodsky. For those unfamiliar with the name, let me paint you a picture of exactly who Will Smith has put in his corner. Alan B. Grodsky is a partner at the prestigious law firm Leach Tishman, and he is not someone who takes cases lightly. We're talking about an attorney with over 40 years of experience in complex litigation spanning entertainment law, intellectual property disputes, defamation cases, wrongful termination claims, and employment discrimination suits. This man has built a reputation as one of the most formidable legal minds in all of Hollywood. His credentials speak volumes. Grodsky holds a Juris Doctor from the University of California at Berkeley School of Law and a Bachelor of Arts from UC Santa Barbara. He's admitted to practice in California, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 5th and 9th Circuits, and the U.S. District Courts for the Central and Northern Districts of California. He holds the highest peer review rating from Martindale-Hubbell, an AV preeminent rating, which signals the absolute top tier of ethical standards and legal ability. He's been named a super lawyer by Los Angeles Magazine every single year from 2007 to 2025. Every single year for nearly 2 decades. This is not the kind of lawyer you hire when you want to quietly settle out of court and make a problem go away. This is the kind of lawyer you hire when you want to fight, when you want to go to war, when you want to absolutely demolish the opposition's case and leave no doubt in anyone's mind about who was telling the truth. And fight is exactly what Alan B. Grodsky has made abundantly clear Will Smith intends to do. On January 1, 2026, Grodsky issued a statement that was distributed to every major media outlet in the country. People Magazine, ABC News, The New York Times, BuzzFeed, Page 6, you name it. The words were chosen with surgical precision, and they left absolutely no room for ambiguity about the defense's position. Mr. Joseph's allegations concerning my client are false, baseless, and reckless. They are categorically denied, and we will use all legal means available to address these claims and to ensure that the truth is brought to light. False. baseless, reckless, categorically denied. Let me break down why those specific words matter so much from a legal strategy perspective, because this is where you really start to see the chess game unfolding. When a high-powered attorney like Grodzki uses the word false, he's not hedging. He's not saying my client doesn't recall or my client disputes the characterization. He's drawing a line in the sand and saying that what the plaintiff described simply did not happen. That's a bold position to take because it means Grodzki is confident that whatever evidence exists or doesn't exist will ultimately support Smith's side of the story. Baseless goes even further. It suggests that there's no foundation whatsoever for these allegations. Not a shred of credible evidence, not a single witness who will corroborate what Joseph claims to have experienced. Grodzki is essentially telling the world that when this case gets to discovery, when both sides have to lay their cards on the table, Joseph's hand will be empty. And reckless? That word is particularly interesting because it carries implications that go beyond just defending against the current lawsuit. In defamation law, recklessness can be a key factor in determining whether someone who makes false statements can be held liable for damages. By publicly labeling Joseph's claims as reckless, Grodzki may be laying the groundwork for a potential countersuit down the line.
And so the suit says, the facts of this case strongly suggest that Will Smith was deliberately grooming and priming Mr. Joseph for further sexual exploitation. The sequence of events, Smith's prior statements to the plaintiff, and the circumstances of the hotel intrusion all point to a pattern of predatory behavior rather than an isolated incident.
What makes Grodzki's statement so strategically significant is what it doesn't say. Notice that Grodzki doesn't engage with the specific details of the allegations. The hotel room, the note signed Stone F, the items that were allegedly found. He doesn't try to explain away the timeline or offer an alternative narrative for why Joseph was terminated. Instead, he labels the entire claim as fabricated and promises to use all legal means available to fight it. Legal analysts have pointed out that this type of response is classic, high-profile defense strategy. By refusing to engage with specifics in the public arena, Grodzki avoids accidentally validating any part of the plaintiff's narrative. He's not saying, well, someone might have entered the room, but it wasn't connected to my client. He's not saying those items were there, but they don't mean what the plaintiff thinks they mean. He's saying none of it happened. Period. End of story. This approach serves multiple purposes simultaneously. First, it signals absolute confidence to potential jurors who might see media coverage before the trial. Second, it puts the plaintiff's legal team on notice that there will be no easy settlement. They're going to have to prove every single element of their case in court. And third, it controls the narrative in the court of public opinion, where celebrity cases are often won or lost long before a verdict is rendered. But here's where things get really interesting. Brian King Joseph's attorney, Jonathan J. Delshad, is no amateur either. Delshad has experience handling cases exactly like this one, having previously gone up against major entertainment industry figures, including Tyler Perry, in similar employment-related disputes. He knows how this game is played. He knows what Grodzki is doing, and he's clearly prepared for the battle ahead. In interviews, Delshad has made it clear that the strength of Joseph's case rests heavily on the retaliation claims. This is a crucial distinction that many people watching this story unfold have missed. Joseph is not alleging that Will Smith personally propositioned him or directly assaulted him in a physical sense. What the case centers on is the failure to protect, the failure to investigate, and ultimately the termination that followed Joseph's complaint. Under California's Fair Employment and Housing Act, employers have a legal duty to take reasonable steps to prevent harassment in the workplace and to investigate claims when they are reported. If Smith's team failed to investigate and instead fired the person who made the complaint, that alone could constitute illegal retaliation, regardless of whether anyone is ever able to prove who actually entered that hotel room or who left that handwritten note. And the lawsuit also invokes the Bain Act, which protects against interference with civil rights through threats or violence, and the Ralph Act, which addresses violence or intimidation based on protected characteristics. These are serious legal frameworks, and they suggest that Joseph's legal team is prepared to pursue this case on multiple fronts simultaneously. Delshad has suggested that discovery in this case could be particularly revealing. Subpoenas could be issued for hotel surveillance footage from that night in Las Vegas. Phone records could be obtained, showing who communicated with whom in the hours before and after the incident. The spreadsheet that listed everyone's room assignments could be examined to determine exactly who had access to Joseph's room information. Text messages and emails between members of Smith's team in the days following the incident could be subpoenaed and analyzed. If those records exist, and if they support Joseph's narrative, this case could become a landmark moment in entertainment industry accountability. But if those records tell a different story, or if they don't exist, Grodsky's strategy of aggressive denial could pay off in a major way. According to California civil procedure, Will Smith's legal team has approximately 30 days from the date of service to file a formal response to the complaint. That response could take several forms. A motion to dismiss arguing that even if everything in Joseph's complaint were true, it wouldn't constitute a valid legal claim, or an answer that denies the allegations point by point, while potentially raising affirmative defenses. What everyone wants to know is simple. What is Grodsky's actual game plan beyond the public statements? And as both sides prepare for what could be years of litigation, another question looms even larger. What does this mean for everyone involved and for the entertainment industry as a whole? There's a moment in Will Smith's recent interview about his Based on a True Story album that feels almost eerie when you watch it now, knowing what allegations would emerge just months later.
It was just the most natural thing that came out of me. I've been, these last couple of years, I've gone really interior. So I've been looking around inside of there in a way that I never have before.
Will Smith sat there, speaking about going on an interior journey, about discovering new parts of himself, about facing things he'd never had to face before. He talked about finding a new creative well, a place inside of himself that was deep, authentic, and sometimes scary.
And, I found a new creative well, a really deep, authentic, sometimes scary place inside of me of the most.
He spoke about the concept behind his album, Rave in the Wasteland, which he described as learning how to accept and celebrate his challenges. He talked about leaning into difficulty instead of running away from it.
And there's a way that I'm learning to be with hard times. When things arise, it's good, yes, thank you.
The irony of those words, spoken before this lawsuit became public, is almost too heavy to process. Here was a man talking about embracing challenges, about finding growth in the midst of struggle, about psychological and emotional alchemy, and now he finds himself facing one of the most serious legal challenges of his entire career.
Early in my 40s, I went to Denzel. I was like, D, because I'm having a hard time over here, brother. He said, man, listen, it's called the funky 40s. Everybody has a hard time in their 40s. Don't worry about it.
Will Smith is now 57 years old. He's supposed to be past the funky 40s that Denzel Washington warned him about. He was supposed to have reached that place of trust and freedom that comes with the 50s. Instead, he's staring down a lawsuit that accuses him of predatory behavior and facilitating sexual harassment, allegations that, true or false, will follow him for the rest of his career. And make no mistake, this is not Will Smith's first brush with career-threatening controversy. The 2022 Oscars slap, when he walked onto the stage and struck Chris Rock for making a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith's shaved head, sent shockwaves through Hollywood. He resigned from the Academy. He was banned for 10 years. Projects were paused or canceled. His reputation, which had been carefully cultivated over decades of blockbuster success and family-friendly appeal, took a devastating hit. He spent the years after that incident on a redemption tour of sorts. The Based on a True Story album was part of that comeback. The world tour was part of that comeback. The interviews where he spoke about growth and self-discovery and learning from his mistakes, all part of the carefully orchestrated return of Will Smith. And now, just as that comeback was gaining momentum, This lawsuit threatens to undo everything. But here's what makes this story bigger than just Will Smith and Brian King Joseph. This case has become a flashpoint for a conversation that the entertainment industry has been having and avoiding for years.
And I understand, and if that's you, I see you. And that's pretty much it. More updates to come soon, Thanks for listening.
If that's you, I see you. When Brian King Joseph posted that video on December 25th, 2025, Christmas Day, just 5 days before filing his lawsuit, he wasn't just speaking about his own experience. He was speaking to every performer, every crew member, every person in the entertainment industry who has ever experienced something traumatic at work and been afraid to say anything about it. The power dynamics in touring environments are notoriously imbalanced. When you're a musician hired to perform on a major artist tour, your entire livelihood depends on staying in the good graces of the people running that operation. You don't have HR to complain to. You don't have union protections in many cases. You have a contract that can be terminated at will, and a career that depends on word-of-mouth recommendations in an industry where everyone knows everyone. Think about what Brian King Joseph has already been through. This is a man who was told by doctors that he might never play violin again. A man who withdrew from a full scholarship at Berklee College of Music because his body was failing him. A man who adapted, who pushed through pain that most people can't even imagine, who clawed his way onto the AGT stage and showed millions of viewers what resilience looks like. And now he's standing up again. This time not against the disease, but against one of the most powerful entertainment figures in the world. Public reaction to this case has been, as you might expect, deeply divided. On social media, some users have rallied behind Joseph, viewing this case as emblematic of the power imbalances that exist throughout the entertainment industry. They point to his documented health struggles, his willingness to speak out despite the risks, and the specificity of the allegations in the lawsuit as evidence that he has nothing to gain and everything to lose by going public. Others have expressed skepticism. They note that the lawsuit doesn't directly tie Will Smith to the hotel room intrusion, that whoever entered that room and left those items could theoretically have been anyone with access to the crew spreadsheet. They question whether Stone F actually refers to Will Smith or is some kind of misdirection. They wonder if this might be an opportunistic lawsuit designed to extract a settlement from someone with deep pockets. And here's the uncomfortable truth: we don't know. We won't know until this case goes through the legal process, until discovery happens, until both sides present their evidence, until a judge or jury weighs in on what actually occurred. What we do know is this: no criminal charges have been filed. This is a civil lawsuit seeking damages for sexual harassment, wrongful termination, retaliation, and related claims. Will Smith has not been arrested. He has not been charged with a crime. He is being accused in a civil complaint of behavior that, if proven, would make him and his company liable for monetary damages. For Brian King Joseph, this lawsuit represents something that goes beyond money or vindication. In his Instagram video, he made it clear that he's speaking out not just for himself, but for everyone who has been afraid to speak up about workplace misconduct in the entertainment industry. And that's where we are right now, waiting for those updates, waiting to see how Alan B. Grodsky's aggressive defense strategy plays out in court, waiting to see what evidence emerges during discovery, waiting to see whether this case ends in a settlement, a trial, or a dismissal. The lawsuit is currently in its earliest stages. No court dates have been set. No depositions have been scheduled. Both sides are preparing for what could be a prolonged and intensely scrutinized legal battle. Brian King Joseph, the man who played through pain, who defied a disease that tried to steal his music, who stood on the AGT stage and showed the world what resilience looks like, he's now standing on a different kind of stage. And Will Smith, the Fresh Prince who became one of Hollywood's biggest stars, the man who slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars and spent years trying to rebuild his image, is facing a test that no amount of box office success can prepare you for. Whatever happens next, one thing is certain: the world will be watching. And now, so will you.